Good morning, good afternoon and good evening wherever you are. Many thanks for joining this second webinar on innovation in water management. My name is Gareth James Lloyd and I'm a Senior Advisor at UNEP-DHI Partnership, a United Nations Environment Programme Collaboration Centre, and we specialise in the area of freshwater and environment. I'm going to be your facilitator on this webinar today with technical support from Maija, who introduced herself just earlier. If you'd like to learn more about who we are and what we do, then please check out our website after we're done here. This webinar series is organised by UNEP-DHI in collaboration with the Academy by DHI, as well as valued partners such as Cap-Net, who we are very pleased to have with us today. Just for the record, the aim of the series is to give an insight into the role that innovative approaches can play in supporting the achievement of the water-related Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. And as you're going to see and hear, it's not always about reinventing the wheel, but more about adopting and applying new techniques and technologies to improve or better achieve the desired results. The ambition of this webinar series is basically for some participants to be inspired to adopt more innovative approaches in their work. In the first webinar, a little while back now, we looked at the role that the SDGs play or are expected to play in shaping water management practices and monitoring in the decades to come. In this second series, we're looking at innovative approaches to capacity building to achieve the targets of the SDGs. And on the agenda today, we have Henriette, who's the Vice President of DHI's Academy, and Henriette is going to be talking about the need for innovative approaches to education and capacity building. Following Henriette, we have Kees, who's the Deputy Director at Cap-Net. He's going to be talking about virtual knowledge and training networks for achieving the SDGs. And last but not least, we're going to have Chengzi, who's head of serious games here at DHI, and Chengzi will be talking a little bit about serious gaming as an innovative approach to capacity building. Each presentation is going to be about 10 minutes long, and I'm going to be a little bit strict on timekeeping to make sure we're able to cover everything. We'll try to allow time for 1 or 2 questions immediately after each presentation, just to break it up a bit. And there should also be some time to take some additional questions at the end. Participants, if you look at your screens, you'll note on the menu panel on the right, you should be able to see a box for submitting questions. It has questions on it and perhaps a little plus that you can press to open it up. If you type your questions there and submit them to us, we'll be able to see those as we go along, and that's where we'll pull the best of the questions from, or as many of the best questions we can. So please make good use of that. All of the webinars in this series are being recorded and made publicly available on YouTube, and you can also access them through our website at www.unepdhi.org. I think I'll ask Maija now to pass over to Henriette, who will be the first of the speakers. Thanks, Maija.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Gareth. As mentioned in the previous webinar, both capacity development and technology transfer are needed in order for the countries to be able to address the challenges in the SDG targets. Generally, you can say that knowledge, if not shared, and innovation, if not accessible, is worth nothing. In my presentation, I will briefly define capacity building, introduce the SDG capacity gap, and then move on to some examples of innovative approaches within education and capacity building. Once upon a time, you were more or less done when you finish your education. In the fast-paced world today, we need to continue learning. Lifelong learning is a must. Rapid innovation and change have become regular features of education, driven by the need for integrating rapidly expanded knowledge into public education systems. We are moving from formal schooling to lifelong learning spaces. In response, there are an increasing number of learning innovations aiming to connect knowledge and information with a wide range of people spread across multiple contexts and geographic scales. So what do we mean by capacity building or capacity development? Simply put, if capacity is the means to plan and achieve, then capacity building or development describes the ways to those means. Both terminologies are used. Basically, it will always be about building on existing capacity of some form. Capacity development must bring about transformation that is generated and sustained over time from within. It is beyond performing the tasks in itself. It is more a matter of changing mindsets and attitudes. The SDG number 6 is the water SDG, about ensuring availability and sustainability of water and sanitation for all. It comes with some physical targets, drinking water, sanitation, hygiene, and so forth, and then it has some implementation targets, which then incorporate the technology transfer and the capacity building as such. But having said that this is the water SDG, we should also mention that water is a cross-cutting and important for most of the SDGs. So even when not mentioned specifically in an SDG, it is still an important matter as a part of that SDG. And also capacity development or capacity building is mentioned several places in the SDGs. But we are facing a capacity gap. In order to address SDG number 6, we are facing a severe capacity gap. A number of studies have shown, for instance one by the International Water Association, that there's a severe lack of water professionals. And this shortage of human resources can mean that meeting the SDG number 6 will be a challenge. Significant investments in infrastructure and technological innovation will not solve the challenges as formulated in the SDG if not accompanied by the necessary focus on the size and competences for the human resource base needed to construct, operate, and maintain such services. So water education and capacity building are key elements to face the current water challenges. More specifically, in any case, we will need to make capacity needs assessment in the different countries and find out what is needed there. But more specifically, you can say that, for instance, collecting data for the IWRM target is a place where many are struggling. Also, for instance, another example, to manage water distribution networks, it today requires a number of IT skills on data management systems, GIS, and simulation tools, all things that are not necessarily well known and well spread throughout the countries. So when it comes to the challenges that we are facing, when it comes to education and capacity development, there are many aspects and issues to address. I will focus solely on the how, for instance, meaning the different approaches to education and capacity development. The challenges that we are facing are so big that there's a need for thinking out of the box and come up with innovative approaches. The challenges with the traditional way of doing it is that reach out and impact is limited. And keeping up with technological advances and experiences made elsewhere can also be a challenge, in addition to the physical and financial constraints about the classical approach where you do face-to-face training. When we then talk about innovative approaches, I should perhaps start out by saying that approaches, tools, or technology may be viewed as cutting edge some places, but be rather well known other places. We'll obviously not mention all possible examples, but just list a few and then go into details with some. The methods can actually also use new tools and technology and hence become more innovative, in addition to, of course, having completely new and innovative approaches. The information and communications technology is basically what is offering us a lot of opportunities for doing some new and exciting things. Distance-based learning, simulation tools, virtual environments where you both learn in or from, serious games, which Chengzi will comment on later, mobile applications. And then, of course, we have the training networks where you can also apply the information and communications technology. Distance-based learning is perhaps the method that has the possibility to become one of the approaches with the biggest possibility of impact. And we have in many ways only scratched the surface so far. Massive online open courses, self-paced ones, on demand, either in combination with chat rooms, computer-aided assessments, and so forth. Also, when used blended, where you combine the traditional classroom setting with online elements. The next step is, of course, the online university and campuses, where some places in the world, the first virtual universities and campuses have been launched. Some of them even to the extent of being very exotic and really cutting edge, where we are talking about a virtual self, your avatar that will go around in the virtual learning environment. And you can only imagine how this can develop over time as the IT development continues and our network continues to develop. Simulation tools. The use of new technology today means that, for instance, wastewater treatment plant operators need to know much more about IT with respect to daily operation and control. So the good thing is that the IT world also provides tools that can be used for learning this in a safe and virtual environment, similar to what, for instance, when pilots have flight simulators to add on to the more practical learning experience. Similar to that, wastewater treatment plant operators can learn how to operate their network and what happens when they do certain things in a simulation environment where they are actually learning what happens without actually having an effect in real life. Mobile phones are increasing in sales all over the world, and we have some huge numbers expected. Apps within water and wastewater management are also increasing. An example is shown to the left, which is an app that lets people know when the water is clean enough to swim in around the coast in Denmark. This is based on a numerical model that runs, and when you have combined sewer overflows happening, it will actually tell you when it's safe to go swimming again. The logical next step is, of course, to link the capacity development and specific training and learning goals into some of these apps that are already existing. And we can also look around and see that, for instance, in other places of the world, Duolingo is an app where you actually learn a language. So there's actually only the sky that is the limit to what we can do. If we look into the future, new tools are developing every day, and the world is becoming increasingly more online. But old-fashioned face-to-face training sessions are actually sometimes difficult to compete with. And even with the new methods, we are also facing some challenges. How many, for instance, have access to laptops and a stable network communication? So, all in all, infrastructure investments are probably needed before the new approaches will be widely accessible to everyone. That was it for me. Thank you so much for your time.
Many thanks for that, Henriette. I think we've got time for a quick question. Part of your presentation, I think you said that, in some areas that some innovations would be new and cutting edge, and in others, well, they would be quite well known and tried for a number of years. I mean, we talk about innovation, and you talked about kind of old school face-to-face training. Which do you think is best? Is there still a place for face-to-face training in 5 to 10 years time, when hopefully just about the whole world is online?
I actually definitely think there's a place still for face-to-face training. I think that the connections that you build between people and the engagement level is really very high when you do face-to-face. But I do think that we will see it more in the blended use, where you actually take advantage of the online environment when that makes sense, and then combine it, if possible, with something face-to-face. I do think, however, that we will see much more turning into the online world, and then we can actually use the appropriate learning method when it makes the most sense. So you could perhaps start something up face-to-face and then continue into an online environment afterwards, after having made the connections. So I do think we will probably still see face-to-face training in 10 years' time.
Many thanks for that response, Henriette. That was excellent. Without further ado, I'll ask Maija to pass the screen over to our next presenter, Kees. So whenever you're ready, Kees, and ready to go, then please start.
I hope you can hear me. I just forgot to unmute myself, but I think I should be there now.
We can hear you, Kees. You just
good. Thanks for the confirmation.
Launch that presentation and click on it so we can't see your icons. Thanks, Kees.
Come again? Oh, I got it. Yeah, just hold on. Right. Actually, good morning to everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. Here in Rio, it's good morning, and it's a bit clouded. Not what you have seen in the last couple of days from the Olympics, where we had beautiful, sunny, clear skies. It's now a bit. But although it has been quite windy, but now it's a bit clouded. But of course, we are excited about the event and all the things happening in the city. I wish you could join us here. It's really very good. In any case, I have a short presentation on virtual learning and capacity development networks to achieve to help actually achieving the SDGs. It's a bit different from the the title that Kees showed earlier, but this is what I tried to go into. My name is then Kees Leendertse. I work with Cap-Net UNDP. We got some very good pointers from Henriette just now, and what I will do is I will try to bring in the on-the-ground experience from our program. So necessarily you will hear, or inevitably you will hear quite a bit from Cap-Net and what we are doing. I hope it's not going to bore you, but if you have any questions, just let me know. So in the presentation, we will look at virtual learning and capacity development networks and what this actually means. I will then introduce our innovative partner capacity development networks and how they contribute to and to which sustainable development goal targets. Right, I found a definition of virtual learning environment, and according to the definition, it's a web-based platform for digital aspects of courses of study, and usually within educational institutions. This is true, and I can adhere to this definition. It also allows participants to be organized in groups and in roles, present resources. Basically, what we're doing now is so like facilitated courses online, for example, is a good example of a virtual learning environment. But like Henriette said, of course, there's quite some facilities needed to make this happen. First of all, you have to have a platform on which to run such an environment, and secondly, the people participating in courses or in seminars or whatever, they will also have to have the facilities to do so. So there are quite some minimum requirements to be able to run a virtual learning environment. But this is basically the the definition of it. The benefits of a virtual learning environment, or online learning, or digital learning, or whatever you want to call it, are of course that the outreach that you have with your, in our case, your training activity is much larger than you can ever do through a face-to-face course or traditional educational programs. Also, I think Henriette also mentioned that, is that you can do it in different ways. You can do it in self-paced manner, so that participants can follow their own process. But you can also do it facilitated with contact moments. So that makes it a very flexible environment. And also, like Henriette said, there are some disadvantages. It will never replace a normal face-to-face learning with a normal personal interaction. And of course, it does have the advantage of being flexible, as I just said. But on the other hand, you don't have these contact, face-to-face contact moments, and that is a clear disadvantage. On the other hand, but it's relatively cheap. I will show you with an example that we have. If you look at our virtual campus, for example, you can visit campus.capnet.org. You can see that we run quite some parallel courses at the same time with our partners, that are being facilitated by these partners, and so that is a good advantage, that you can run similar or simultaneous different courses, yeah, it's an effective way to increase your outreach, and this, of course, the demand for capacity development is very high, and we need all the tools that we have to reach as many people as possible. I mentioned I mentioned the virtual campus. I didn't mention CapTech yet. We have developed a program that's called CapTech, and that focuses on developing capacity in the use of new technologies for improved water management and productivity. We think it's a very innovative program in a way that we use all tools related or available for capacity development, and especially also the new tools. I will mention a few technical new technologies that we try to introduce, but also the technical tools that we have for capacity development. The concept is based on the availability of new technologies to be utilized for adequate capacity development. That through this partnership program, we have collaborative knowledge transfer links. That we, in this way, in this good mix of a good technical partnership plus capacity development partners that we have, that we can accelerate the incorporation on the use of new technologies available for water management, and that we can also apply then these new capacity development techniques, as I just mentioned. Also, Henriette mentioned already that Chengzi will introduce a serious game that we have developed together, or actually that UNEP-DHI has been developing before we came in, but then we got an adapted version for the Cap-Net program. As I mentioned, we established how do we improve then the access to knowledge products. That's one of the key items of this CapTech program. We have established this virtual campus, and again, I would recommend that you have a look at it. We make use of new and also social media and other type of platforms outside of the campus. We also are introducing a system of accreditation. So it's not that it's a free-for-all, easygoing type of, without any ties related program, but that we also try to stimulate participants through an accreditation system, and eventually this should lead to accumulating credits as the result from following Cap-Net short courses, or short courses organized by Cap-Net partners. This is still a very long way to go, but we think if we do this across the board from all the 23 capacity development networks that are affiliated to Cap-Net, I think we're going to get a very innovative type of educational system, if you may call it like that. That's the one side of the story. The other side is how do we make these networks, these innovative networks, how do we make them effective? We have, of course, analyzed our partner networks together. We have done the peer review where network members or managers have been visiting other networks and analyzed them, what are the pros and cons or the strengths and weaknesses of those networks. And some key points came out that a powerful network is building on the strength of its members. And it also challenges members to take initiatives rather than everything being run from a network secretariat. It also picks up initiatives from the members and builds on that also to the benefit of the other members. Of course, the secretariat has to be active and respond to an effective demand. And very important is to encourage the exchange between members so that you really take most benefit from those from the strength of these members. And the last point that came out clearly is that an effective network has their responsibilities and tasks clearly identified. Of course, there is also obstacles, something that can limit the networking function. If there's no funding for the secretariat, for example, or if there's not enough sources for activities, then slowly the network will disappear. And of course, if there's no communication between and within the members and the secretariat, then it will also not be very effective. To get to that point, we have developed some kind of management tools to try to get to effective networks. There are some tools listed here. I will not go into detail into that, but they are available on our site. You can go to capnet.org, and under resources, there's all the tools are there listed, and you can they're freely available.
Hi, Kees.
Hey, you're going to say something?
Jump in there and give you what in footballing terms is a yellow card, just to let you know that you have a couple of minutes left, and if you could speed up, that would be much appreciated. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Right, and here we have just a map. Some of you may have seen this already of our global structure. But I would just want to point out is that the three entities and of geographic networks, our partner networks, international partners, and the thematic capacity building networks. And this is, I think, a unique combination of global partners and regional and country level networks for the delivery of capacity development. Okay, since Gareth urged me to move on, I will not go into what we do in support of those networks. I just want to point out a few things how we think that this networking and partnership development is contributing to achieving some of the SDGs, and then in particular, of course, Goal 6, as Henriette just introduced, and then there are two targets and that are especially relevant to us. But on the whole, I think we are addressing all of the what used to be 6 targets, which are now 8, although there's 6.7a and 6.7b. It's a bit, I found it a bit complicated how this has been developed. But that's what we try to do. We try to implement capacity development programs in support of achieving those targets. Here's again quite a long list of programs that we have under the CapTech program that we are developing. It's a continuous process of developing capacity development activities, and how they relate to the different targets under Goal 6. I believe that this presentation will be made available, so you can just go through that list by yourself with more time. Then of course there's also under CapTech, what I mentioned already, some points that are more related to not to the technical part of water management, but more to the innovative capacity development part. So, but they have also been mentioned. Online courses, of course, on our virtual campus. Blended courses, where we do exactly what Henriette also brought up, this face-to-face in combination with virtual learning. We have available some online tutorials. You can also find them on our site. Self-paced courses, and again serious games that we are working with. Thank you. And I hope, Kat, I didn't take up too much time.
No, that was great. Many thanks, Kees, and many thanks for your offer of some kind of blended face-to-face webinar in Rio. We have to figure out how to make that one work.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
Yeah. A quick question to you, Kees, that's come in. Do you have any information on the impact of ICT-based learning for water management, with ICT being, of course, information and communications technology? Is there any info on that? I mean, I think it's a good question.
Well, we do have, yeah, we do have some insights, and actually by the end of the year, I hope that we can issue a report on that, based on the evaluations that we have done, on the effectiveness of innovative learning, distance learning. And I would want to come up with some kind of figures, because there are always assumptions how these online courses are being run, you know, the participation and the dropouts and that type of stuff. And I would like to, through our experience now with our campus, come up with some hard figures. So in that sense, the contribution of ICT, yes, I have will have some information available on that, but only related to online learning. How ICT supports water management, because that was your question, right?
The question is about, is there any information on the impact of ICT learning? Does it work?
Oh, learning. Okay. Now I thought you. Yeah, all right. No, I thought it was just ICT and water management. Okay. That's the question that I then just answered. We will try to get some good insights available by the end of the year, based on our own experience, and of course on what others have also experienced in with virtual learning.
Okay, that's great. Many thanks for that. We have some more questions for you, Kees, a little bit later on, but I'll save those until the end. Again, without further ado, I will ask Maija to pass the presentation over to Chengzi. So Chengzi, please unmute your microphone, and I'll tell you when I can hear you, so you're ready to go.
Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Maija.
Yeah, you're good to go. Thanks.
All right, it's my pleasure to talk about serious gaming as an innovative approach to capacity building. My name is Chengzi, and today what I'd like to do is to briefly explain what is serious gaming give a few examples of the approaches that we take in using serious games, and share some of our thoughts on how serious gaming can help achieve the SDGs. There's a small disclaimer here. In my presentation, there will be a number of videos, and that could cause some lag in your screen. If that happens, just hang on and do not close the GoToWebinar program. We don't want to lose you halfway. Okay, to start off, serious games is a category of games that is designed for a specific purpose other than for entertainment. And this purpose can be solving problems collaboratively. It could also be a way to crowdsource information and achieve some kind of predictive modeling. And finally, it can be a way to improve learning. Well, there are many capabilities in using games. What we're focusing on with serious game is how we could improve learning and improve capacity building. Now, how do we learn from games? How can games improve learning? To answer that question, we can take a look at a very simple example. If you imagine yourself learning to ride a bicycle, you remember getting on a bicycle, trying it out, falling, and trying it again and again until you eventually get it. The idea of learning by playing a game is quite similar. In a game environment, you perform some actions, and the game kind of changes and reacts to your actions. These actions could either reward you or penalize you in terms of points or other in-game mechanisms such as medals and things like that. And based on these reactions, you kind of evaluate your actions, and then you try it again. And this loops goes on as long as you continue to play the game. And this is a concept we call learning by playing, and it provides a safe hands-on environment where you could learn by personal experience. And the idea of using games to teach, to learn is not new. There are many applications and industries which uses games to train and educate. Henriette has mentioned earlier that, for example, pilots, they go through a number of simulation training together with hands-on training when they learn how to fly a plane. And the same goes for military training. They use games in war games or in other scenario simulations. And this digital-based simulation started more than 10 years ago. But because of the technology then, they were really costly to develop, and only larger organizations were able to afford it. With the advances of technology nowadays, we see that the cost of making such games is going down. And as a result, there are more and more digital games that are made to train and educate in many other sectors. If you look at, for example, the car manufacturers, they're starting to use games to train assembly workers on how to assemble a car. We see doctors and nurses using games as part of their training. We even see corporations, like McDonald's in this case, using games to train new employees on how to deal with customers. So why not use games to train in water? That's where DHI, UNEP-DHI, and many of our other partners come in. We started the game platform called Aqua Republica, and this game platform combines a scientific model. In our case, we use Mike Hydrobasin, together with real-life hydrological data, and we create a virtual world where players can practice making decisions in a river basin as a catchment manager. In our approach, we have created this platform, which is a framework of game components, and we can then customize and build different unique versions based on these components, and we do that with many different partners. These unique versions vary in geographical location. It could vary in water issues to highlight or different lessons to teach, and it could be targeted at different audiences. So we have developed games that targets high school students to university students to policymakers. And one of the examples that we've done together with Cap-Net is this version where we focus on various key water issues such as food, energy, water nexus, and transboundary water issues. And the aim of this version is to improve water education in schools, in high schools and also in universities. In another example, we have developed a unique version for water scarcity issues, and we also use this version to highlight water-related SDGs to schools and universities. In both examples, the complexity of the game works for both high schools and undergraduate university students. Of course, different students will get different out of it. So when you look at high school students, they get something of a more basic level, whereas if you look at undergraduate students, they cannot appreciate the more detailed complexity that we have in the game. What do we do with games? We conduct many different activities, such as stakeholder workshops or trainer-teacher workshops, with the games. Here in this video we see the game being used as part of a class in South Africa. Usually when we use games like that in a class, we get a lot of excitement, a lot of engagement, a lot of questions from participants, and it's really good too to increase the interest of participants in the subject of water. Besides workshops, another interesting activity that we do is to run competitions. We have tried out small-scale competitions, for example, as part of a conference or even as part of a training course, and as usual, these competitions are very popular. We even have an annual competition called the UNEP-DHI Eco Challenge, where we get high school students from around the world to compete in playing a version of Aqua Republica. And the demand for such a competition from teachers increases every year. These competitions are also a very good way to increase awareness of water issues and also to get more and more people interested in getting into the water sector. As more and more games start to develop in the water sector, the future of using games to help achieve SDGs has a big potential in our view. What we can expect is that there will be more and more games with varying complexity levels targeting different audiences. These games will serve as a communication or education tool, which would help improve the capacity building process and eventually help in decision making. Something went wrong. Okay, here you go. We can also expect games to use different types of scientific models or data, such as combining different models like agriculture, energy, water, or even use big data. This allows more realistic games to be developed, and we can even use these games to visualize and understand more complex processes, and as a result, understand more about about these processes. Lastly, we can expect games to be more intelligent and have a feedback loop so that information and knowledge flow is not just one way. We can expect future games to be able to collect data or knowledge from players and therefore shed new light into problems and solutions in varying parts of the world. And all this could come in the very near future. And I would like to take the chance to introduce an exciting EU research project which will exactly touch on this new developments. This EU research project will combine water, agriculture, energy, climate models, and we will build a serious game on top of this to serve as a policy tool to improve policy making in Europe. To conclude my presentation, I would like to share a video from Flo, who's the coordinator of this EU project called Symphonexus. Again, some people might experience some lag when we show this video, so just don't close the program and hang on, and we'll see.
I'm pleased to introduce Symphonexus. Symphonexus supports decision making on the Sustainable Development Goals, including SDG 6. We consider in our policy support analysis the nexus of water, energy, food, land and climate. Such interaction is often ignored by decision making. Consider, for example, the high use of energy for pumping of irrigation water for agricultural practices. We develop a serious game for water managers, practitioners and decision making at regional, national and European scale. and we test the serious game in case studies, in regions, a couple of countries in Europe, at continental level and global scale.
Okay, many thanks for that, Chengzi. Let me just pull up my my screen here before we move on. Chengzi, I have a question for you from the audience, particularly relating to the last part of your presentation. Can serious games be eventually used as decision support tools?
Thanks, Gareth. That's a good question. It depends on the data that we build the games on and the models that we build the games on. If we are building a game on very generic data or based on non-scientific models, then I think using games as decision tools is stretching a bit too far. Such games, when you use generic data and when you use non-scientific models, they're good to show the connectivity of different processes. It's good to show some kind of perspective. And if you want to get into decision making, then you need more detailed models and more accurate data. And if you're able to combine that, then it could be possible to use that.
Great. I'm going to ask Chengzi if you can keep your mic open, and Kees and Henriette if you can unmute your microphones. I'm going to give you a few more questions that we've had coming through. Just while you're doing that, I'd just like to make a quick point, perhaps stating something a little bit obvious, but good to get out there, and that is that we of course recognize that innovative capacity building for improved water management is a huge area, and the presenters today are giving their expert opinion on this subject area based on their professional working experiences. We realize that a lot of you out there will have additional thoughts and ideas which you'd be able to perhaps build on using some of the inputs you've had today. So I will turn to Henriette first. Are you there, Henriette?
Yes, I should be. I have unmuted myself, so I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Henriette, please could you share some thoughts on how the famous fallout from online training can be reduced? And just to explain that in a couple more words, that is, you know, it's very normal to run an online course and have a lot of people sign up, and then maybe only a certain number start the course, and then perhaps some kind of much smaller portion of those actually finish the course. Do you have any thoughts and ideas on how that issue can be addressed?
Well, I think that there are some ways that you can address it that I will get back to, but I also think that we should just realize that this is a very normal way of things happening. I think that in the world that we're seeing that becomes more and more online, you for some reason don't seem to feel obligated in the same way as if you had a personal connection with someone and you said, I'll be there tomorrow. And so I'm seeing this kind of loyalty online is different than face-to-face loyalty, and I know that statistically from some numbers from one specific course on Coursera, which is one of those massive online courses, they dropped from 17,000 attending to, I think it was a few thousand coming out at the other end, which is still impressive. So I would say that even if we have a large dropout level, we can still reach many more than we would with a traditional setting. But I do think that the dropout rate reduces significantly if you actually tie it in with what people actually need at the other end. So if you really need to know this and you really need to upgrade your skills and learn something more for your job, and it's hence very, very relevant for you, then it becomes different. And if you then tie it in with some requirements, for instance, nationally or regionally, that you need to have a certain certification level, or you need to have conducted and proved that you have conducted certain training courses online, then it becomes something that is valued and appreciated in a different way, and hence that will, in my view, actually be a part of reducing the large dropout base, because it becomes a part of the way that you qualify yourself to become better at your job, and it will be something that will be appreciated and valued by the society and your employer. And then you tie it in with some, some kind of certification accreditation systems, which means that you actually get something more out of it.
Thanks a lot for that, Henriette. Quickly over to you, Kees. Question here, how can we measure and increase the impact of virtual learning?
Well, it relates a bit to what Henriette just said, and I wanted to react to that actually. Our experience with dropouts from our courses is not that high as what you just mentioned, and I think it also depends on the level of active facilitation that you get during the course. Of course, inevitably, it's like you said, Henriette, that the the dropout is much higher than when you have a face-to-face learning environment. But and incentives, of course, help a lot. If at the end of a course you get some kind of a diploma, like as you mentioned, that helps, and also if the applicability of what is being trained if that is very practical, then also you will have less dropouts probably. Okay, then back to your question, Garrett. I forgot.
That's okay. How can we measure and increase the impact of virtual learning?
All right, that's
just briefly, please, because there's a few questions I'd like to get through.
Yes, we're doing, of course, evaluations straight after each course. That gives you that's basically the same as with a face-to-face course. It gives you a very clear view on the appreciation of those courses by the participants. But we also include our virtual learning programs in our more longer-term impact assessments. We have a program called MALP, this Monitoring, Evaluation, Learning Plan, where we do this short-term post-course evaluations, but also look at a bit longer-term use of the knowledge that has been transferred during the course after 6 months and a year, how this is being applied in the working environment, and what effect it had in the longer term on water management. Of course, there are always external factors, and the longer away, the longer the period for you after the course until you do your evaluation, the more external factors are influencing this. But it gives us some kind of a view on the effectiveness of these programs, and I think the same will apply for the virtual learning programs as the more traditional training and education programs.
Thanks for that. It sounds like Cap-Net is building up some experiences we'll be able to learn from in the not too distant future.
We're there already 15 years, so by now we should have learned something.
Yeah, we look forward to you sharing that report soon on your website. Thanks. Over to you, Chengzi. A quick question here is, are these games based on real scenarios in real geographical regions of the world?
You meant the two examples, or?
The two examples, yeah.
Yeah. The two examples, the first example that we have that were built with Cap-Net, they are built with real-life experiences. The actual events are obviously not real-life because the game is based on a very fictive world. But what we have done is we have added through our experience in policy work and through our partners like UNEP-DHI and Cap-Net, we get scenarios, typical scenarios that happened in a transboundary catchment, and we add them to the game. For the other version, we are using, again, experience that we have in project work within that country, and the second version is actually based on Burkina Faso. So we have experience, we have work experience over there, and we get these scenarios in. So the answer is yes.
Hi Gareth, we can't hear you. Are you still there?
Thanks for that, Maija. And thanks, Chengzi. I guess there are different learning experiences and pros and cons about using those two different types of versions. Just very quickly, I'd like to go to Henriette and ask, Henriette, are you there?
Yes.
Good. Henriette, at which level is this capacity gap that we're talking about? Is it at the grassroots level, or decision makers, or what would you say? Where does it lie?
Obviously, there will be differences between, from country to country, but I would say that I think on a general top level, awareness level, we have reached out a lot, and the SDGs have definitely also promoted the urgency of that. I think it's at the next level, a grassroots, or if you call it grassroots, where we actually have the gap, and we need to have more moving into the field of water management. And I think it also ties in with some very complex things, like, is it from a young person, when you're choosing what you want to move into, is this the field you want to work in? Does this sound like an appealing future career-wise? Can they see themselves doing that? But I do think that it's very much on the grassroots operational level. How do I do this, and what are the tools that I can use, simulation tools or other tools, how to move forward? I think that's where I perhaps see the biggest need, and also the reason why we today have a lot of training also taking place today, still as very much face-to-face on vocational training and so forth. There's a strong need to have some of these skills.
Okay, many thanks for that, Henriette. As mentioned, this is the second of 6 webinars, and at the moment we have September the 14th penciled in as a tentative date for the next one on Earth observations, and this should include input from the European Space Agency. Further information on dates, times and details will be made available on our website and relevant mailing lists once we have the final confirmations in place. And as you can probably hear, I'm afraid that's all we have time for with regard to questions and inputs on this webinar right now. So please allow me to begin by concluding today's session by thanking the presenters very much for taking the time to share their knowledge and experiences with us. I'd also like to thank you, the participants, for taking the time to join in and share your questions with us. We tried to cover as many as we could. There were a number of other good ones that we simply didn't have time for, but if you have any burning issues, then please send an email to Maija and she'll do her best to get back to you. We're always looking for ways to improve the quality of our work, so we'd be grateful if you could use a couple of minutes to quickly fill in the feedback survey form that we'll be sending out to you very shortly. And I think that's just about it, except I should wish you all a very good morning, a good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you. Bye.